Hey everybody, how's it going? Mickey here, sitting in the Rusty Bucket studio. The number one thing that get asked is, how much does it cost to build a home studio? Well, it depends. Like, what is your goal? What are you looking to achieve in your home studio? If you're just like an acoustic guy who sings and plays acoustic guitar, then you're not going to be spending a whole lot of money on a home studio. And I'm talking like guitar and equipment included, and this is if you already have a computer, obviously. But with buying a guitar, an interface to plug your guitar in, and a microphone, you're going to be spending under $500 if you got everything used. I mean, like, it's that cheap. What I decided to do what I decided to do basically was I figured I would get a list together of basically all the equipment that I have in my studio. For a guy like me who plays most instruments that could form a rock band, the basic guitar, bass, drums, keyboard, this is a collection I built over the years. This isn't a video to show off my equipment and boast, because actually a lot of the equipment that I have is really cheap and nothing to brag about. I found it was actually surprisingly cheap to start out, and I just kind of started building off of things out of convenience. I didn't go out and buy everything intently. It was more of I was an opportunity buyer where I saw something on Facebook Marketplace, Kijiji, or any kind of used website, or even Amazon that's a really good deal, and I see it, and it's kind of just an opportune moment where I see that item for a certain price that I know I'm not going to see again very soon. Anyways, what I decided to do is I put a list together of what it would basically cost me or you today if you wanted all the equipment that I have in my studio today. If you wanted to buy it online, go to the sources and buy everything that I own to build a studio, um, then that's basically what I'm going to tally up. And I'm going to calculate everything. I'm just going to add everything up together. I'll show you everything that I have here. Shy of one thing, I have a different type of interface that's outdated that you probably won't be able to find. So I'm actually going to substitute it for a more modern interface. So I put the list together, and we're basically going to see what it would cost if I had nothing today, if I wanted to build what I have now. I looked up the interface that I have. It's the V Studio 20 by Cakewalk and Roland, and there are actually a couple listed, and the price ranges from $107 to almost triple that. But the chances are anybody buying equipment for a studio probably won't run into this unless they're actively seeking it out, like that they want this interface. So, first thing I'm going to bring up is the interface, and the one that I would recommend, that most people would recommend, I think, for people starting out, is the Scarlett. It's a very known interface that is known to be durable and work well, and it's like $333. So it's not super super cheap, but it's also not super super expensive. Next thing I'm going to go into is a microphone. I have the Art C2, and as you can see here, you can get it for $199. I would always recommend, if you're going to be getting a condenser mic, don't cheap out on a condenser mic, but you don't have to go super expensive either. You don't have to go super fancy, but don't cheap out, because there's a diaphragm inside of the microphone that vibrates. The cheaper that it is, the more easy it is for that diaphragm to break. And that's what picks up your voice. So they're very easy to break, especially when they're cheap. So unless you're going to be treating your $60 condenser microphone like a golden child baby, then I wouldn't recommend getting something cheap. So we'll add 200. So next thing you're going to want, if you're an acoustic guy, you're going to want an acoustic guitar. Now, this is the price that is listed for the Beaver Creek travel guitar. Here it's listed for $230, so that's what I'm going to put. That's how much it would cost me. Now, if you have a studio, even if you play acoustic guitar, it's always a good idea to get an electric guitar, because it expands your creativity, and you're going to be able to create sounds that you never really realized you could, especially if you've never played an electric guitar. I would definitely recommend getting one. Not only that, but by learning the electric guitar, when you're trying to learn about playing leads and stuff like that, you'll find that you'll end up challenging yourself, and you'll end up really, really getting your playing level on guitar to that next level. This is the one I own. It's the J Tercer, JT220. Oh, it's right here. The J Tercer JT220 CS. So it's listed here at $319.95. So that's what I'm gonna put it. Now bass. I actually picked up this bass. It's the PV Zodiac BXP. You're gonna be looking at cables for the guitars. You're gonna need like 3 or 4 of them. Let's say 15 bucks each. You're gonna be spending 60 bucks on the on guitar cables. Same with the microphone cables, actually. I was actually able to get an XLR microphone cable for my condenser microphone at Long and McQuaid's for $10. I also bought this thing, and this comes out to like, this is for those experienced guitar players who play different genres and play in different tunings. When you're in the studio, if you have one guitar and you're constantly changing tunings on that guitar, you're obviously putting wear on your strings constantly, and you're going to end up changing your strings a lot more. Not only that, but you also end up stressing the guitar out because you're putting tension on the neck and then releasing the tension, releasing, and that actually wears down your guitar in general. So if you play in different tunings for different songs and stuff like I do, you're gonna want to get a second guitar or a third guitar, depending on how many tunings. If you play in 4 or 5 different tunings, um, it's gonna get expensive, because you're gonna need those 5 guitars staying in those 5 tunings so that you can get consistency with your recordings. Otherwise, you're not gonna get that consistency. As much as it sucks, because playing in different tunings um, is a great way to expand your creativeness and be able to not put yourself in a box. Um, it really is. You don't have to. You can replace your guitar every couple of years if that's what you need to do, but um, it would be your best bet to get a guitar for every tuning that you play in. But I didn't really want to spend like a whack load of money on a guitar for one tuning. So I ended up deciding to go with a super cheap guitar and modifying it. The Epiphone Les Paul SL. It's one of those Les Pauls that you pick up and you know it's cheap. You know it's cheap. Um, you can get it online here, as you can see, for 179 bucks. So I'll put plus 180. Obviously, these cheap guitars have really cheap pickups and they don't sound very good. A good way to change that is to change the pickups and the neck. I haven't changed the neck out yet, but I did change out one pickup, the bridge pickup. This is a Seymour Duncan Hot Rail. These are great for metal, but yeah, you'd be paying about 140 bucks if you wanted 3 of them. That's quite a bit of money for pickups. I'm gonna get into the drums now. Now the drums that I have are the Hitman HD3 electronic drum set. Um, as you can see here, um, this set, if you wanted to buy it from this source, is actually pretty darn expensive. When I first saw this, I kind of like was shocked, mostly because I paid $100 for my set. No joke. That was a deal. I saw them on Facebook Marketplace. Um, some guy bought them for his son years ago, and he never touched them. Like, he touched them a handful of times and never got into it. So he ended up just listing them up for $100, and I was lucky as all hell to be able to find that. I drove like an hour and a half away from my house to pick them up. It was a really good deal, but that's how much it says you could buy it for on this site. The total cost $952, including shipping. Jesus, that is way too much. Like, and that's coming from somebody who likes the drum set and uses this drum set. Um, would I ever pay $1,000 for a new set of these drums? Absolutely not. I could get a new set of like an electronic Roland kit for like $1,000. So there's no way I would ever pay $1,000 for it. So I did a little bit more. I clicked on a few more ads and I came across this. This is more realistic. Um, so yeah, the only thing you're gonna miss out on is that mesh snare. Um, and I don't have the mesh snare. This one is actually the snare that I have with it. It's just like these but white basically. And it has a rim shot trigger. Um, so yeah, as you can see, there's a mesh snare that comes with this one, but there is no way that that mesh snare costs enough to be able to raise the price that much. It says regular price like 500 bucks for this, which makes sense. But you could probably find this for a cheaper price somewhere. But I'm going to put this lower price that I found here. This is more reasonable price, so I'm going to put that in there. So it's 344.99, 345. Having multiple guitars, if you play guitar, you're going to want a bass. You're going to want your electric guitar and you're going to want your acoustic guitar. So, I mean, that's three guitars as it is, and having individual guitar stands all over the place isn't really ideal. It can get it can take up a little more space and get a little bit more annoying than you think, especially if you have a smaller space like I do to work with. So it's always a good idea to get a guitar rack. This is the pretty much the exact same rack that I have, and that's about the price that I paid for it. So 40 bucks. Now you're also going to want a guitar maintenance kit. I can't stress enough how much you're going to want a guitar maintenance kit. Um, because you're going to have all these guitars to maintain. 101 bucks. 102 actually, if I round it off. You're going to want to have a mic stand, obviously. If you wanted to buy it off of Amazon, it'd be $43. So I actually haven't gotten myself a really good set of studio monitors yet. That's actually my next thing to acquire, along with a mixer. If I wanted to get studio monitors today, this is like one of the cheaper pairs that you can get on Amazon. Like this is, I think, the cheapest set that I found on there. 150 bucks, which is about the price you'll probably spend on your first set of studio monitors. A good idea in my personal mind was to get a keyboard, obviously, because keyboards have all kinds of sound effects on them that you can utilize. I ended up trading a tablet for this actual model. It says 75 and 70 bucks. I'm just going to go with the cheaper because you could probably get it for 25 if you offered it to somebody who is trying to sell one. They are a pretty cheap keyboard. Um, so I'll put 70 bucks. Alright, so you're also going to want, as a guitar player, especially as if you're an electric guitar player, I know that the idea of home recording is you can just plug your guitar right into your interface, use effects and stuff to get the sounds you want. And you can, but if you really want to take your guitar recordings to that next level where they really sound genuine, you're going to want to get an amp. And you don't necessarily need a super big amplifier either, because like you're reamping or recording an amplifier with a microphone, you actually don't want the amplifier to get super loud. You actually want to raise the volume to the point where the cone of the speaker just barely starts to vibrate. As soon as you see that little bit of movement, that's the volume you want to be at. Long story short, if you want to get nice quality recordings of your guitar that sound like you would be playing them live, you're going to want to get an amplifier for your studio. This is the one that I went with. This is the Fender Champion 50XL. And I know some of you might be laughing like, wait, you got a practice amp for recording and reamping guitar in your studio? Well, what are you thinking? The funny thing is these Fender Champion 50XLs have a killer speaker in them. They have a Celestion Midnight 60 speaker in there. And if you don't know what that is, look it up. They're really good quality speakers. Now, I will agree that the cabinet size is way too small. It's a practice amp. It's got a very small cabinet and it just doesn't produce that nice ambient, natural sounding, big sound, right? So what I ended up doing, first of all, before I forget, I should probably enter this price in. $300. That's a killer price for this, actually. So what I ended up doing is I actually ended up modifying it. I ended up building a bigger cabinet for it, basically converting it from a combo amp into an amp and cabinet. And this is what I did to it basically. Before, practice amp, small little cab. After. Or you can just buy amp heads and buy a cabinet separate. Sky's the limit with that. It's all up to what your preferences are and what your end goal is. Not a whole lot of people talk about when it comes to audio production. The chances are, if you're getting into audio production, you're going to be getting into video production too. Most people with at-home studios want to put their content out on YouTube. That's what everybody's doing these days. Most home recording artists are putting their stuff out on YouTube. They're producing videos as well. First of all, the program that I use, Vegas Movie Studio 14. It's actually super cheap. You can get more expensive versions of it, but this is the one that I went with, which was $40. It actually is just pretty much everything you need. It even has a chroma filter so that you can use green screen effects. You can actually put a green screen behind you and filter out that green and put any image you want behind you and stuff. I've actually done that in a couple of videos before. It's just actually a really good tool and an essential tool when you're making videos for YouTube and stuff. After I'm done making this, I'll be using Movie Studio to put everything together, and that's what you're watching right now is the product of that. Now I'm going to move on to the camera that I used for video production. This is the camera that I ended up getting from Amazon. Actually comes in a nice little case. The microphone that came with it is the microphone I'm using right now for this. I actually quite like this microphone, specifically for the fact that I'm able to use it. It has a 3.5 millimeter jack plug-in. Use an extender and an adapter and plug it right into my guitar input on my interface, and it picks up the vocals the way that it is now. It's not the greatest, but it works just fine for these kinds of videos. This is the camera. It's actually not a bad camera at all. Crystal clear. You can actually record in HD, so definitely a really, really, really solid camera. I bought it off of Amazon for about this price, which is $190. That's going to be about the average price. That's another thing that you're not really going to want to cheap out on. You're going to want to get a camera that has the option of an external microphone, even though you're not going to be using the audio in your music videos because you're going to have the song playing over it. It makes lining things up in the movie studio a lot easier. You match the two audio sounds so that they are playing at the exact same time. That way you know they're completely synced. So I would definitely recommend getting a microphone that picks up audio well. You don't necessarily need a tripod or anything. I didn't have one when I started out, so I didn't include that in the list because it's not really something that I really even need today. I don't even really use it much today. It's just an option. But you are going to need lighting. The light that I have here is actually one of these. You'll also notice in some of the music videos that I produce, the little room that I'm playing the drums in is lit, sometimes in different colors and stuff. That's all because of this lighting. These are the Neewer 2-pack portable photography light, video light. They're a nice little light that actually work really well. They're super bright and I haven't had any complaints. And they come with all of these cool gel inserts. But yeah, a set of lights will be essential. So you're going to look at $46. There's only one thing left on this list. It's one of the most important parts of a studio. The acoustic foam. You get these nice foam pieces and you hang them on the wall. Don't just do it free willy-nilly. Look into videos on how to hang acoustic foam properly. It's pretty easy once you figure it out. Maybe I should do a video about how to hang acoustic foam. Are you into that? Comment, let me know. But anyways, this is actually the set that I got. It came with 24 pieces. I ended up just building panels out of them and just hanging them. I actually put picture frame hangers on the back of them so I could just hang them up. And they've been working really, really well. So that's $40. If anybody's really interested in this number, it's actually not all that impressive. When you really take into consideration, that's a lot of items, and I was actually really expecting a lot higher of a number. If I wanted to buy everything that I have in my studio today and rebuild what I have today to be able to produce the kind of music videos that I do today for the price that they're listed for, you'd be spending about $2,856. You know what? That's actually a really solid price. It's a really, really interesting journey recording. And seeing that price makes me think a lot of the things ended up being listed for double the price. If I wanted to get it today, I'd have to pay double what I paid for it when I got it. My number's probably more around like 2,000. If you find the deals out there that you won't find every day, you become an opportunity buyer as opposed to, oh, well, I want everything that you could possibly need for a recording studio right away. You can get things done pretty cheaply. It's all about just waiting and looking for that right buy. There's no rush to build yourself a giant studio. There really isn't. Let me put it this way. You can buy $20,000 worth of audio equipment and gear. You may not have anything worth anything when it comes to recording music. You know what I mean by that? Let me elaborate. Let's say you buy all this stuff. You've never had any recordings. You've never recorded a day in your life, but you just want to build a recording studio and get started. So you decide to invest $20,000. You buy all this rack equipment, all kinds of different guitars and amplifiers and a big mixing board, and you go all nines and you spend like 20 grand on shit. You're not going to really know how all of those pieces of equipment work together. By being that opportune buyer, by building slowly, starting off with baby steps, take one piece of equipment at a time. Experiment with those first, get to know how those things work inside and out. Brainstorm on what your next purchase should be that's going to help you. What step do you want to take? Progress that way. Don't just go blindly in buying everything that you think you're going to need at the beginning, because half the things that you get, you're going to end up, I don't even need this. Down the road, you'll learn about recording and you'll look at all this rack equipment and stuff that you may have bought. Sometimes I use this one, sometimes I use that one. I'm not really sure how this one works. I just have it. And why? Personally, I'm just starting out with rack equipment. I have one piece of rack equipment, which I actually forgot to include in this list, but it's not. It was $60, so add $60 to the price. Whatever. I'm not going to go and buy a bunch of rack equipment until I know how that piece of rack equipment that's essential to me right now is working. Be wary about what you're buying and build slowly. That way you'll know that you're getting the best bang for your buck. You'll also end up creating something that really works for you. Anyways, that was it. And I'm surprised, actually happy too, because now I can kind of justify in how much I've spent, because I haven't spent a whole lot, and the return out of the enjoyment I get out of it is just tenfold. So you can't put a price on that. Yeah, you can do it pretty cheap. You don't have to spend 10 grand to be able to record nice quality music. If you enjoyed this video, please just hit the subscribe button, leave a comment. It helps me so much. I'm not going to stop producing. I'll be releasing music videos, tutorials. I'm going to be continuing my how to record music tutorials episodes very shortly. So stay tuned, and I hope you enjoyed. See you later, guys.
If I have to go away, at least we'll go another way. Can I plan to slip away? Hypnodancer, Hypnodancer.